Welcome to part 4 of our lettuce bed video. In previous episodes you saw us build this bed and fill it up and plant all the lettuce, and we still have a few more things to finish up. What we're going to do in today's episode is we are going to install the ball valve that we talked about in previous episodes to our upright irrigation tubing that comes from the valve and the pipes that are underground. So we're going to cut this upright piece with our cutting tool, glue that on, use a piece of pipe to glue a T on top of it, and then we are going to go out into the irrigation tubing after that by using our glue-in compressors that'll go from the PVC into the irrigation tubing.
And next, what we're going to do is we're going to install some drippers into the irrigation tubing. So we'll make holes with our hole making tool here, and then after that we will snap in the drippers just like that.
And that'll feed all the rest of the tubing that we set up on our previous video. Step 1 is going to be to take these 1/2-inch glue-in compression adapters, and I'm going to glue those in to the side of the 1/2-inch PVC. So they're going to glue in with the glue, and that goes to the PVC side, and then the other side allows a compression fit of the irrigation tubing. We're going to take some of our glue, and what you want to do with this glue is not get too much excess on there, but you want to get some glue on both surfaces. So I'm going to get it on the inside of the PVC here. That covers it. And then I'm going to get some on the glue-in adapter. And a little tip, don't cut your finger the day before you're doing this, because it inhibits your dexterity. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to glue it on in. And this time we got clear glue, which has an advantage because when there's excess, you don't see a lot of excess. But the disadvantage is you can't actually see where it is when you're gluing things on. So anyway, there's one side, and there goes the second one. Push it all the way in. There we have it, and the next step is going to be to glue this right on top of the ball valve. In order to do that, we need a piece of pipe in between. So I'm going to cut a piece of pipe off of the top of here and glue it into the ball valve, and then the remaining part that's sticking up is going to glue into the T. So we had covered this up, so dirt and debris and other junk didn't get in there in the meantime, so I got to uncover the tape. And then it looks like the ball valve is going to cover about that much, about 1 inch or so, and the T is going to cover maybe 1/2 inch. So I'm going to see if I can get it right and cut about 1.5 inches off. If I mess up, we've got a long length here. So I'm going to cut about, maybe more like 2 inches. So let's see, this thing just sort of ratchets, makes a nice clean cut. Now I'm going to dry fit this before I actually glue it all in. So once again, I'm going to glue the inside surface of the ball valve, and I'm going to put, oops, got a little dirt on there, and I'm going to put some glue on the outside surface of the PVC pipe. So we've got glue on both surfaces, and I'm just going to stuff it on in there as far as I can go. Oh, look at that. That's so funny. I've never seen that before. It flipped up. So what I'm actually going to do is stuff it in again. Its glue's drying. Ugh. And now it should stay put. That's going to stay about there. And let me do a dry fit of the T here. And that looks pretty good. Once I stuff that all the way in, it'll be nice and clean without a gap. A little bit of glue inside the T, a little bit of glue on the outside of the pipe. And I'm just going to push that all the way down and line it up. Looks about right. Up again, it's kind of moving on me, so I'm going to have to hold this in place. I can wipe off some of the excess here so it looks cleaner by the time we're done. So I'll hold that in place until the glue sets. So now that I've got this part assembled, the next step is going to be to cut this pipe a lot lower and glue the ball valve onto the top. Now, in previous valves, we went a little bit below the soil level, knowing that the soil would compress down a little bit, and we'd be able to turn the red part of this valve open and closed pretty easily. We're going to go a little bit higher this time, so the soil is not in the way. So I'm going to move a little bit of the soil out of the way to have a little room for clearance to work with here. So I'm just going to take a sponge and sort of clean the dirt off here to make sure that nothing impairs this getting glued down properly. So that looks nice and clean in the area we're going to cut and glue. So again, I'm going to come over. That's right about soil level, and I want it to go a little bit higher. So right about there looks like a good level. And by the way, you can always cut more off much more easily than you can add stuff back. So we're going to cut this right about there. There we go, nice clean cut. And we'll go ahead and do a little dry fit test of our ball valve assembly. And we know it's going to fit on just about like that. And looks like we're above the soil level here, so that should be just about right. I'm going to glue the inside of the ball valve, and we're going to get some of the glue on the outside of the PVC pipe. And you don't have too long to wait. While that's still wet and pliable, we're going to get that right in place. Should probably do this with a rag or some gloves, but I don't happen to have one in my hand, so I'm going to wipe that off with my fingers. And there we have our ball valve assembly in place. Now that I've got the ball valve assembly in place, Karin is going ahead and taking care of the drip tubing and the elbows.
So what I'm doing over here right now is I'm getting ready to plug the drip tubing and the elbows into the ball valve assembly here. And I've already done it over here on the left hand side, so you can see what it actually looks like. And then over here on this side, I'm going to take this elbow and drip tubing and I'm going to place it in here just like this. And that looks good. And the next thing that we're going to do is put these elbows down here and then hook the drip tubing into the whole system. Now I'm going to measure and cut. And then I will attach the drip tubing over on this side. There we go. So now that we have this side in place, we're going to do the same thing over here on the other side. So now I'm going to attach this elbow to this piece of drip tubing that is attached to the ball valve. So I'm going to work it in just like this. As you can see, that takes a little bit of strength and a little bit of maneuvering. And then I'm going to attach it to the rest of the drip irrigation system here. So now, the drip tubing is now officially attached to the ball valve. So now that the drip tubing has been attached to the ball valve, we are ready to install the drip emitters. So the first thing I'm going to do over here is make a hole in the drip tubing. And next, here is the drip emitter. I'm going to snap it right in here. There we go. And so when the water comes through the drip tubing, it will come out through the emitter and it will water the lettuce right here. So now I have one done and 54 more to go. So now we're down to our last couple of plants. And right here I'm going to show you how I'm going to install an emitter. And the first thing I do is make a hole in the drip tubing, just like this. You hear that pop there? And then here's the hole. That's what the hole looks like. And then I'm going to put the emitter into the hole and snap it right in. Just like that. Now, one thing I would like to say is that since we spaced out a lot of our plants this year, we took some of the emitters from other beds and we placed them in here, and so we have a variety of different emitters here, but the ones that we're using in here, regardless of how they look, are actually 2-gallon emitters. This is where we took out the emitters. We put these little plugs so that the water doesn't leak out from the drip tubing. These things are really handy to have. All right, 2 more to go. Here's the tool that we use to make the holes in the drip tubing, and when I squeeze it like this, a little piece of metal comes out and pierces the drip tubing and actually makes the hole. So now I'm just going to finish the last couple of plants. This is the last one.
Now that all the emitters are in place, the next step is to hook up the new electronic control so it can operate the valve that comes in and feeds all these tubes and emitters that go into our lettuce bed. So stay tuned, coming up in the next episode.